Please give me heating oil.
On a snowy night, deep into the night, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, there stood my 4-year-old niece. She was shivering from the cold. Her lips were purple. Why had such a small child made the journey to our house, which took even adults 30 minutes?
That's impossible.
He always wears a stoic expression, but he's gentle with a tender side, and easily moved to tears. However, after what happened next and I learned the truth, I was shaken to the core. I have been married to Connor for 3 years now. Our life together has been peaceful, and I have always felt reassured. However, one of the few concerns in our life was about children. Both Connor and I had wanted children since the beginning of our marriage, but there were no signs of that happening. Although I understood that it was something beyond our control, I couldn't help but feel a little lonely every time I saw couples with children on the street. Another concern was the strained relationship with my own family. Especially with my brother Adam, things were not going well at all. It was largely because of him that I had distanced myself from my parents emotionally. My brother, who is 5 years older than me, has always looked down on me. Adam excelled in everything and acted as the model child in front of our parents. No matter what happened, our parents always believed in him and rarely paid attention to what I said. Nevertheless, we continued to maintain our relationship as a family. Both my brother and his wife, as well as my husband and I, lived near our parents' house after getting married, so inevitably we had many opportunities to encounter my brother.
Hey, Natalie. Still no kids?
Yeah. It's just something we can't control.
If you keep taking it so lightly, your husband might just leave you one day.
With a smirk on his face, Adam laughed as if he were quite satisfied. His favorite pastime was teasing me and Connor about not being able to have children. My kind husband doesn't show any signs of anger and skillfully brushes off these comments, but I can't help but feel uneasy. Even my brother's wife, Vicky, seems uncomfortable at those times. I feel like she's a kind person from the way she treats their daughter, Bella, but she seems unwilling to go against Adam. While I did want to get along with my sister-in-law and niece, doing so would mean having to deal with my brother. So despite living nearby, we kept our interactions to a minimum. On one particular day, something unusual happened.
Please give me heating oil. Mommy is cold.
Late at night, when I opened the door in response to the doorbell, my niece stood there with purple lips. The wind had been biting since morning, and snow had started falling quietly in the evening. Why had 4-year-old Bella come all the way to our house, a journey that even adults would take 30 minutes to make?
That's impossible.
I was startled when my husband suddenly raised his voice at our shivering niece. Anyway, we needed to warm up Bella. When I thought that, my husband was already gently picking up Bella. Without a word, Connor carried Bella into the warm room. My husband often appears grumpy, leading to misunderstandings, but he's truly gentle and kind. However, seeing him behave so differently from just moments ago left me bewildered, and I followed after him. Connor. As I called out to my husband, I was surprised for another reason. He seemed on the verge of tears. My husband raised his voice at our niece because he was trying to hold back tears and his tension made his voice louder than intended. Saying that's impossible was likely because he couldn't simply send Bella back without understanding the situation, especially since she seemed clearly distressed. Once I understood this, it made sense. I asked my husband to prepare some warm drinks for our niece. Meanwhile, I sat her in front of the stove, wrapped her in a blanket, and decided to talk to her to find out what had happened. Bella, what happened out in this cold?
Mommy, she's still sleeping and won't wake up. Her body feels cold, so I thought she might be too cold to wake up. I wanted to make her warm, but we ran out of heating oil.
Hearing this, I felt a chill run down my spine. It stirred up such grim imaginings. All right. But the heating oil is heavy, so Uncle and I will drive you there.
Is it okay? Thank you.
Bella's expression finally brightened, but time was of the essence. We hurriedly got into the car and headed to my brother's house. 5 minutes later, we arrived at my brother's house. We rushed inside and found my sister-in-law collapsed in the living room. Vicky. There was no response from my sister-in-law, but she seemed to be barely breathing. Thank goodness. Connor, let's take her to the hospital right away.
Got it. Vicky, hang in there. Whoa.
As my husband lifted her unconscious body, he almost lost his balance. What's wrong? Are you okay?
Yeah, just startled. She's much lighter than I expected.
His words made me feel uneasy once again. Despite the bitter cold of the winter night, it was icy cold inside the house, and Vicky was wearing a heavy down jacket. Furthermore, around the bed, there were piles of blankets, quilts, and even other coats and scarves. Could it be that they had been living in such dire conditions without proper heating? I couldn't help but imagine that possibility. Luckily, there was a large hospital nearby, so we quickly transported Vicky by car. After completing various procedures, we returned home with our niece for the time being. She must have been quite tired because she fell asleep right away. Meanwhile, we still hadn't been able to reach her father, Adam. With various worries weighing on my mind, my husband and I also drifted off into a short sleep. The next day, Connor went to work with concerns about Bella. Shortly after, we received a call from the hospital informing us that Vicky had regained consciousness. I went to the hospital with my niece immediately.
Natalie, Bella.
Vicky. I'm so relieved.
Mommy. Are you okay? I.
My niece rushed to Vicky and burst into tears upon seeing her mother. Perhaps seeing her mother's face caused the tension in her to finally break. Vicky lovingly stroked Bella's back as she fell asleep, exhausted from crying. According to the doctor, my sister-in-law had hypothermia, malnutrition, and her cold had worsened, putting her on the verge of pneumonia. The situation could have been much worse if your body temperature had dropped a little more.
Thank you so much for helping me and taking care of Bella.
Vicky repeatedly thanked us while crying, leaving me momentarily speechless. It's okay. But, if you don't mind, could you tell me what happened?
Well,
Bella came to our house asking for heating oil. But, I'm sure there are other ways we can help besides that.
Natalie. Thank you. Actually,
It took a long time for Vicky to tell her story with a catch in the throat. It was clear that something terrible had been happening in my brother's home. I wasn't the only victim of my brother's actions. If only I had confronted the situation instead of running away, maybe Vicky and Bella wouldn't have suffered like this. Feeling this deeply, I swore to somehow rescue them from my brother. Once again, after getting permission from my sister-in-law, I gathered some of Vicky and Bella's essential items along with a few other things from my brother's house. Furthermore, after making a call to a certain place, I finally managed to get in touch with my brother, and all that remained was to wait for that day. Then, 2 days after Vicky was discharged from the hospital, I invited Adam to our home. Vicky, who had left Bella with her friend, was already waiting at our house. When my brother arrived, late as usual, he seemed surprised to see Vicky there.
Oh, Vicky. So, you've become friends with Natalie and Connor?
As Adam spoke casually, Vicky remained silent, her lips tightly pressed together.
Well, it's fine. Natalie, Connor, sorry for the trouble my family caused.
It's okay, really.
Ah. Natalie, you're fond of kids even though you don't have any, huh? It was good for you that you could take care of Bella while Vicky was hospitalized.
My brother, who always mocks me in his usual manner, seemed to have no awareness of neglecting his wife and child, nor any awkwardness about the current situation. So, what were you, her real father, doing during all this?
I was busy. Working to support my family, you know.
Oh, really? Well, you might have some free time now. What do you think, Vicky?
Yes, Adam, let's get a divorce.
With that, Vicky handed Adam the divorce papers. Of course, her section was already filled out, but even seeing that, my brother remained calm.
What's this? Trying to make a point.
Adam defiantly flicked the divorce papers that were placed in front of him with his finger.
You think you can manage on your own after leaving me? You can't even be a proper housewife. You're going to talk back to me? Do you even understand what you are saying?
Being shouted at, Vicky's face turned as pale as it had when she collapsed in the room. Despite summoning the courage to speak up, seeing Adam's terrifying expression, she was completely terrified. It became clear how much she had been dominated by my brother through force all this time. Vicky. I'll tell him. As I touched my sister-in-law's hand, she squeezed it tightly and nodded. Vicky was suffering from malnutrition. Because you hardly provided any living expenses, she had to cut down on her own food budget.
Huh? What's this all of a sudden? I've been giving her money, haven't I?
Handing over a few $1,000s randomly as household expenses? Do you even remember how much you were giving her?
Vicky is lying.
She kept a household account book. It was to explain to you that you couldn't live like this. But even after hearing that, my brother just laughed it off.
A household account book she just scribbled in doesn't prove anything.
Well, how about this then? At that moment, I took out my sister-in-law's medical diagnosis report and another document I had prepared. These are printouts of your bank account usage and card transaction history. There's no evidence of money being used for household expenses, is there?
Where did you get those from?
I got it from the computer at your house. Every website had saved passwords, so it was easy to log in. Suddenly confronted with such evidence, my brother's mouth hung open, and he struggled to find words. And besides, spending nearly $3,000 each month? Seems like you've been enjoying quite a lavish lifestyle. You said you were busy with work, but it seems like there was another reason you hardly ever came home. As I smirked meaningfully, Adam's face contorted.
What's that supposed to mean? Don't say such disreputable things. Stop your weird fantasies.
Oh, so you're going to play dumb till the end. I shrugged my shoulders and then revealed one last thing, something I had saved on my brother's computer. It was a photo of messages exchanged with his mistress, suggesting an intimate relationship. The messages even detailed extravagant gifts and trips, along with significant savings being spent on the affair partner. Even with all this, you still claim to be innocent? Adam, confronted with undeniable evidence, blinked rapidly. Vicky not only seeks divorce but also intends to claim damages. We're also willing to cooperate. Upon hearing this, Adam fell silent for a moment, but soon he began to lash out.
What's that supposed to mean? You're sticking your nose into our marriage. Who do you think you are?
It's Vicky's decision.
Whatever. Do whatever you want. I won't let this slide.
At this point, his defiance left me nothing but exasperated. But in a way, I expected it to come to this. After all, the reason we had someone hiding in the next room was precisely for this moment. You're beyond help. You can come in now.
Huh?
My brother's eyes widened in astonishment. Entering through the door were our parents.
Dad. Mom. What are you doing here?
We called them. Of course, they've been listening to everything. I observed Adam's stunned expression and my parents' complex emotions. They had always believed in my brother more than me. But surely, they must have understood his true nature by now. There's no way they would continue to support him, right? Anxiety surged through my chest at the thought. That's why the relief I felt when I heard the decision my parents made regarding Adam was immense. My parents decided to sever ties with my brother and support Vicky and Bella. Adam, confronted with their firm stance and clear position, could only react with confusion.
Wait a minute. But, I'm the eldest son. You can't just abandon me, can you?
Adam desperately clung on, trying to convince them to change their minds. Seeing him like that, I decided to play my final card. It's you who will be in trouble, isn't it, brother? Without the inheritance from our parents, you won't be able to repay your debts, will you? This was something I hadn't yet disclosed to our parents. I didn't want to burden them with the knowledge that their own child was relying on inheritance to pay off debts. I told you, didn't I? I've checked everything on your computer. You've been borrowing from various places.
Well. But
seriously, trying to estimate the value of the family land and cars? Isn't that a bit premature? At that point, even my brother turned pale, sweat starting to drip down his forehead.
Natalie. Do you not care what happens to me?
I mean, not really?
Come on, don't say that. Aren't we just two siblings here? It's okay to help each other out, right?
I was surprised by Adam's sudden change of heart, but my own feelings remained steadfast.
I'm sorry, okay. I'll apologize. But I can't repay the debt on my own.
Adam looked at Vicky with pleading eyes, but she completely ignored him. There was not a single person there who sided with my brother. Isn't such an apology too little, too late? Both Vicky and I don't care what happens to you anymore. You get what you deserve. As I cut him down with those words, Adam slumped his shoulders and collapsed to his knees. Afterward, Vicky and my brother officially divorced. Given Adam's behavior up to that point, custody naturally went to Vicky. He was ordered to pay a lump sum of $120,000 in child support and $15,000 in alimony. However, with only his daytime job, He couldn't keep up with the payments, so he started working night shifts doing temporary jobs every day. Vicky also received $10,000 in alimony from Adam's affair partner and has now started fresh working at a new job. And as for me, surprise! I found out that I'm pregnant. My husband, of course, and my parents, who had greatly improved their relationship with me, celebrated the news. Vicky and her daughter were also overjoyed, especially Bella.
I'll teach everything to the baby,
She said happily. Thinking about our upcoming child, I couldn't help but feel excited.
Hey, why were you both in the bathroom together?
My 4-year-old daughter pointed at my husband and my older sister, uttering these curious words. To me, it was an innocent question, but for my husband, it seemed like a bombshell. He tried to maintain composure, forcing a smile, but the panic in his eyes was evident. Sweat beaded on his forehead, streaming down like a flood.
I saw you. What were you doing there?
Her relentless innocence left my husband flustered. Suspiciously, he stammered, and I resolved to uncover the secret hidden behind that bathroom door. I'm Olivia, a 33-year-old and working in a major food company in a regular position. My husband, Michael, and I met 6 years ago through a mutual acquaintance. Our connection blossomed, and a year later, we tied the knot. Following my pregnancy, we used our combined savings as a down payment and secured a mortgage to buy an apartment. Soon after, I gave birth to our daughter, Mia, and returned to work after maternity leave. Balancing work, household chores, and parenting was a juggling act, but luckily, my husband cherished our daughter and was incredibly supportive. Living near both sets of parents, mine and my husband's, plus my sister and her spouse, we had a strong support network. Especially my sister, Sophia, who didn't work and had no children of her own, doted on Mia like her own. When Mia turned 3, I was entrusted with a crucial work project that often required weekend overtime. At times like that, my sister would come over to our house for my lonely daughter, and often spent time together with my husband and daughter. I felt immense gratitude toward her. Thanks to this arrangement, I successfully completed the project and even secured a promotion. Everything seemed perfect, and I basked in happiness. Little did I know that betrayal from someone I trusted would shatter this idyllic life. At that moment, I couldn't fathom the cruel reality awaiting me. It was my daughter's 4th birthday party, and our home was filled with not only our immediate family but also both sets of grandparents and my sister's family. As everyone celebrated and watched our daughter open presents, she beamed with joy, and the adults reveled in her growth. It was a harmonious and pleasant time. However, the atmosphere took an odd turn when my sister excused herself to use the bathroom. My daughter suddenly asked,
Why doesn't Daddy go with Sophia?
Her words caught my sister off guard, and she paused. Why would Daddy go with her? Going to the bathroom is something you do alone, right? I responded absent-mindedly, assuming my daughter was referring to her toilet training days, even though she was now capable of going by herself. But then my daughter uttered unexpected words.
But I saw you both go together the other day.
Really? I asked, taken aback.
Yeah,
She continued innocently.
I saw you. But why were you both in the bathroom together? You're adults. That's weird.
Her smile remained intact as she questioned us. What was Mia talking about? Confused, I glanced at my husband. His reaction was evident. He looked startled, eyes darting left and right, sweat forming on his forehead.
Oh, last Sunday, right? We were. Fixing a clogged toilet together.
He stammered. My sister chimed in.
Yes, that's right. It was quite a challenge.
My husband forced a dry laugh, but he kept fidgeting intensely and seemed restless. My sister wore a similar strained smile, nodding along. The other adults, including me, were speechless, taken aback by this unusual exchange.
Let's watch a DVD with Daddy over there, Mia.
My husband quickly changed the subject.
Yay!
Mia agreed. My sister added.
Almost forgot. I was heading to the bathroom.
They hurriedly left the room, escaping the awkward tension they had created. Something seemed suspicious. The truth was, my husband occasionally told silly lies. It was trivial stuff, pretending to shower when he hadn't, blaming our daughter for eating my stored snacks from the fridge, and other minor things. When I sensed his deception, I'd usually respond with a nonchalant, "Oh, really?" But in those moments, he'd invariably start babbling with feeble excuses, digging his own grave. And without fail, his eyes would dart around, and he'd break into a sweat. Doubts about my husband led me to have a conversation with my daughter after everyone had left that day. Hey, Mia, did you see the toilet clogged at home?
I don't know. Daddy and Sophia always lock the bathroom.
Always? Haven't Daddy and Sophia gone to the bathroom together more than once? Sophia was my sister. Mia nodded, confirming that my husband and sister frequently went to the bathroom together. Her innocent words left me feeling uneasy. Plus, I'd never heard my husband mention a clogged toilet before. What could my husband and sister be doing in there every time? Surely not. Despite my growing suspicion, I dismissed the thought. After all, it was my sister. Betrayal from her seemed inconceivable. Torn between emotions, I decided to investigate their actions for now. During a weekend overtime shift, I decided to set up the baby monitor camera we used when our daughter was an infant. After returning home, I checked the recorded footage and was left utterly speechless. My husband and sister, wearing expressions I'd never seen before, affectionate and intimate, had their arms around each other, behaving inappropriately. Even that alone was behavior I didn't want in front of our daughter. But then, from the audio data on the baby monitor, I heard the decisive words.
I love you.
Me too.
They exchanged kisses, completely unaware of our daughter watching. Caught red-handed! I screamed internally. Eventually, my husband's words,
I'll take you to heaven today too,
accompanied by their intertwined hands, led them toward the bathroom. They didn't return to the living room for quite some time. How dare they engage in such indecent behavior right under our daughter's nose? What heaven are they talking about? Both of them will pay in hell. Mark my words. I vowed never to forgive my husband and sister, igniting the flames of revenge. After much internal struggle, I decided to gather decisive evidence of the affair. While the baby monitor footage alone should suffice, I knew that merely confronting my husband with a kiss wouldn't be enough. He'd likely counter with excuses. I couldn't bear to hear his flimsy explanations. Yet, installing a camera in the bathroom felt too invasive. So, I set a trap. Conveniently, our daughter had an overnight stay at daycare scheduled for the following weekend. I fabricated a sudden business trip, and my husband's eyes lit up. I'm sorry for always leaving everything to you.
Don't worry about it. I'm more concerned about you working too hard. Take care of yourself.
Yes, thank you. You should be careful too. My words carried a different meaning, but he seemed oblivious, already imagining something else, as if my words didn't reach him. On the appointed day, after dropping our daughter off at daycare, I headed to a nearby diner. Checking the baby monitor footage on my phone while keeping an eye on the street, I saw my sister eagerly approaching our house. Soon, through the camera, I witnessed my husband answering the intercom and welcoming her inside. A few seconds later, they both returned to the living room, completely undressed. My, how hungry are they? I recoiled at their audacity, then hurried home to confront them. As I unlocked the door and entered the house, I noticed discarded clothing strewn across the entrance. However, there was no sign of the two individuals in the living room. Could it be? In our bedroom. Trembling with anger, I headed toward the bedroom. But just then, I caught sight of a figure on the balcony. It seemed that both of them had sensed my return and instinctively fled to the balcony. Through the glass, I observed my husband and sister crouched in the corner, peering fearfully in my direction. Witnessing my husband's frightened eyes and my sister's slack-jawed expression, I was overwhelmed with intense revulsion and locked the door, leaving them both outside. He had finally realized that hiding was futile. He, one hand awkwardly covering a certain part of his body, tapped on the window, pleading,
Olivia, it's not what you think. I want to clear up the misunderstanding, so please let me in for now.
My sister clung to his back like a baby koala, desperately trying to conceal herself. Hey, why are you still talking about misunderstandings? This is a caught-in-the-act situation. My husband retorted.
We hadn't done anything yet. It was just an attempt, so cut us some slack.
Don't play games with me. Do you think I'm unaware of what you both usually do in the bathroom?
That's a misunderstanding too. We were really just fixing a clogged toilet.
Exasperated by my husband's poor excuses, I revealed that I had set up a surveillance camera in the living room to watch what was going on. I saw both of you being affectionate. You even went as far as kissing, didn't you?
Hugs and kisses are just friendly gestures. I wanted to raise Mia to be friendly with people.
Cheating doesn't fall under friendly gestures. So why did you both head to the bathroom afterward?
That's because the toilet was clogged. We were planning to contact the manufacturer since it happened too frequently.
I relentlessly pressed my husband for answers, but he continued with flimsy excuses. He refused to acknowledge his guilt, and I was thoroughly exasperated by his unyielding attitude. As I remained silent, my husband switched tactics, using a soft voice to say, "It's cold," or "I might catch a cold." But when he realized I wasn't budging, he suddenly grew aggressive. His demeanor changed, and he pounded on the glass, shouting at me.
Enough! You think you can just stay quiet and get away with it? If you don't open up, I'll break this glass.
I sighed at his despicable behavior. Fine, then admit your relationship with Sophia. Today isn't the first time, is it?
Fine, I'll admit it. Sophia and I have been getting close in the bathroom for the past 6 months. Don't make a fuss over something so trivial.
Wow, now you're just being defiant. You're truly despicable. As I unlocked the window, my husband and sister leaped inside like startled boars.
Hey, how could you do this?
He lunged at me, but in the next moment, he noticed the figure behind me and widened his eyes.
Dad! And everyone else!
In fact, on my way from the diner to home, I had contacted my parents, in-laws, and my sister's husband. Without needing a detailed explanation, They immediately understood the situation, having witnessed my husband and sister's strange behavior during our daughter's birthday party. They rushed over to support me.
You shameless scoundrel!
My husband, cowed by his father's angry voice, had lost all his bravado. Just then, our doorbell rang. It was a police officer. Apparently, a neighbor had reported suspicious activity on the balcony. My husband, clad in nothing but a bath towel, profusely apologizing to the police, curious neighbors, and onlookers who had gathered. Eventually, after the police left, my husband returned to the living room alongside my sister, both still wrapped in bath towels. They faced the stern reprimands of our respective parents.
I'm sorry. It was just a momentary lapse. Olivia doesn't pay attention to me because of work, and I got carried away.
I'm truly sorry too. My husband has been busy, and I felt lonely.
Despite their tearful apologies, they continued to frame the situation as if my brother-in-law and I were somehow at fault.
Do you really think those excuses will fly?
However, my feelings for my husband had long since cooled, and I didn't even feel anger anymore. Enough. Let's get a divorce, I declared, thrusting the divorce papers I had already obtained from the registry office toward my husband. At that moment, my brother-in-law chimed in, also mentioning his divorce with my sister. Feel free to use these, I said, handing him an extra set of divorce papers.
Wait a minute.
Seeing the divorce papers, my husband's face paled, and he clung to me.
Olivia, I'm sorry. I truly love only you. Let's start anew, like flushing away the past, just as we do with the toilet lever.
What? What are you saying now? I can't forgive you for doing something indecent in Mia's presence.
I had no choice. Sophia kept pestering me. Her persistence wore me out.
Suddenly, my sister, who had been sobbing quietly, changed her expression. She grabbed my husband's hair and shouted at him.
Hey, don't blame others. You were the one who made the first move, weren't you?
Shut up. I thought it was just innocent physical contact. But you took it seriously. You love-struck fool.
Huh? Which one? I said after Mia took her nap. But weren't you the one who couldn't wait and lured me to the bathroom?
That's rich, coming from you. I suggested going to the bath. But wasn't it you who said the toilet would be more thrilling?
The two began an ugly quarrel, trying to pin the blame on each other. Enough already. It doesn't matter who, it's just disgraceful. After that, they both hung their heads in shame as they were scolded by everyone present, following my lead. And even then, they continued to mumble some resistance, but the more they spoke, the more they were bombarded with criticism. In the end, we both signed the divorce papers with our parents as guarantors. Shortly thereafter, divorces were successfully finalized for both my husband and me, as well as my sister and brother-in-law. I demanded alimony of $20,000 and child support of $70,000 from my husband, as well as $35,000 for the apartment we bought together, and $14,000 in compensation from my sister. My husband and sister were each sued by my brother-in-law for $14,000 in damages. Meanwhile, the scandal had become neighborhood gossip, and my husband, unable to continue living in the apartment, was forced to sell it, leaving him with a debt of $200,000, including the remaining mortgage. His embarrassing reputation had even reached his workplace, leading him to resign soon after. Now, my husband and sister, estranged from their parents, share a rundown apartment without a bath but with a toilet. they struggle to repay their debts and constantly argue. On the other hand, I return to my parents' home with my daughter. Her grandparents still treat her kindly, so she doesn't feel lonely. Grateful for everyone's support, I've resolved to raise my daughter well and continue working diligently.
How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time in the next video.